Lifter-Uppers. I'm Deb Krier, the co-host of Cancer and Comedy, where our mission is to heal cancer-impacted people through hope and humor, something we like to call turning the grim into a grin. Well, today on Cancer and Comedy, we're going to be talking about practicing an attitude of gratitude, even when challenged by cancer. Now, here is the host of our Cancer and Comedy podcast, Dr. Brad Miller.
Hey, Deb. What an honor, privilege. Always a joy to be with you. And today we're talking about a really important topic, and we happen to be recording this and a few days before Thanksgiving. And so people think a lot about being thankful, and grateful during Thanksgiving time, but it also can be a time when some folks are a little bit agitated and annoyed because of other people being happy and of gratitude. And we're going to talk about some of the dichotomy of that here today, but having an attitude of gratitude. But here on the Cancer Comedy Podcast, we are all about helping people to cope with hope when they're facing the challenges there. And we're all about developing a community of people who can help one another. And we'd love for people to check out our community, get connected with our Cancer and Comedy community. Just simply go to cancerandcomedy.com/follow. Well, Deb, how about a couple of turkey-related Thanksgiving bad dad jokes? You ready for those?
Oh my gosh, I need some turkey-related bad dad jokes.
Here's one. What did the Thanksgiving turkey say to the Christmas ham?
I don't know.
Nice to meet you. I'll give you here's another one. When are turkeys the most grateful?
I don't know.
The day after Thanksgiving.
True.
Hey, and just a bonus one. Why do pilgrims' pants always fall down? It's because they're buckles on their hats. Of course. There you go.
Of course. Those poor pilgrims. Oh my gosh. Well, folks, if you've listened to our program before, you know that following our conversation, we will have another one of Dr. Brad's bad jokes of the day. But then, of course, we get serious for our very important Faith It or Break It segment. Well, as mentioned, we would love for you to be a part of the Cancer and Comedy community, where together we crush cancer with a message of how to cope with hope and humor. Please follow Cancer and Comedy at cancerandcomedy.com/follow.
Well, Deb, we really mean it as serious. We talk about crushing cancer with a message of hope and humor. But it's true also that not everybody has hope and humor when they deal with cancer and comedy. That's why I believe our message is so important. That's why you and I got together to do this podcast and to offer this. And there is actually a lot we've talked about it many times in our episodes about there is even, scientific studies, medical reports, and so on that show how having a positive attitude and having a bit of humor in your life and laughter does help to alleviate some of the symptoms of cancer and it helps us with heal. But not everybody feels that way. And so we're talking today about attitude and about how attitude can shift back and forth, particularly when you have cancer. You get a first diagnosis. It can put you down in the dumps right away and maybe give you a pretty negative attitude, and then how to get that shifted around. But one of the important parts of this is having an attitude of gratitude, which is a phrase we often use during the holiday season. But it's true that having gratitude and thankfulness in your life can make a big difference. But it's a tall challenge. It's a tall order for a lot of folks to get beyond that because they can get stuck in a bad place. And I know recently you've had an encounter with some people who, in my observation, what you've shared with me, they're kind of stuck in a bad place. And you got caught up in that a little bit. So I thought you've got a little bit of a story to tell that has to do with attitude. So why don't you just take off from here and tell our lifter-uppers a little bit about the experiences you recently had.
Right. Well, first of all, one of the things that I think is very important that we always talk about is who are you surrounding yourself with? And I did have an experience today that I'll give in a little bit more detail. But then having this conversation with you gets me out of that funk,
Okay.
and I think that's one of the things that we need to really look at is who are we surrounding ourselves with? What are they saying to us? Because they, if they're gloomy, if they're, oh my God, the world is coming to an end, you're going to die tomorrow, all of those things, then we start really believing it. And studies have shown that, and that negativity sticks. It's really hard to let go of it. And so, yeah, anytime you find yourself caught up in that, you need to find somebody who's going to help you out of that. So, my story today was that I have been going on other podcasts as a guest to talk about my cancer journey. Now, I'm a pretty upbeat person
Indeed.
with my story, and there are bad things there are really bad things that have happened. But I don't dwell on those. Do I feel them? Yes. There's all sorts of things, but I was scheduled to be on a podcast this morning and got an email from the host, and she said that she was going to cancel because she didn't want to waste our time. Okay, well, that was good. But she didn't want to waste our time because she felt my message would not resonate with her listeners because I was too positive and I gave too rosy of a forecast for having cancer. And she said, they need to know the grim reality of what's going on. And I responded and I said, okay, well, I have had a lot of very bad things happen. This. And, but again, I choose to get through this in a positive way and in a way that is helping others and being of service to others. And it's funny because she responded, and then her response was, I was too old for her listeners. Which I just
God,
thought was
that's just
hilarious.
flat out. That's flat out mean. There, that's just
I
mean.
know, especially because I'm pretty sure she and I are pretty close to the same age. So clearly our messages were just conflicting, and that's okay. But my thought was, and she was really specific that she wanted to present the reality, the negatives. And I thought about that, and I'll be honest, I was offended. I was offended at her email.
Indeed. Yeah.
But more importantly, I was very sad that that is the message that she wants to put out there. Now, we don't want to be too Pollyanna, and oh, the world is a rosy place and there's nothing wrong with it, because then when bad things happen, we're going to really feel them much more. We need to be realistic. I now my realism is that I've gone far longer than the doctors told me I would. Yay. She saw that as a negative. It was very interesting. Her comment was most of her listeners would never live as long as I have. And I thought, well, that's really
It's
sad. I mean, it was just, but
it's
and
like she
we do
took your
have
took your positive and tried to turn it into a negative for her
right,
audience, and
right,
that's kind of
yeah,
turning things bass backwards from what we try to do
right.
here. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and again, we do need to be realistic. And I think one of the issues is, we've talked a lot about not being around or having toxic thoughts, those
Hmm.
toxic negative thoughts. But I think there are times where there can be toxic positivity. Instead of the sky is falling, everything is beautiful and everything will be fabulous. Well, not always. And so we do have to watch that. And that was kind of one of my thoughts was, am I too positive? Am I too happy? And of course everybody said no. Um, but
Except
it
for
was
this
really
person,
interesting.
apparently.
I know. It was just the strangest thing. But it did really make me think. And it was funny because you had proposed this topic before I got her email, and it was like, oh my gosh, fate. Um, because it really did make me think, what is our attitude? Are we going forward with the sky is falling? Or are we going forward with everything is hunky dory? Or are we going forward with whatever comes, we can deal with it? And I
Mm.
think that's the message that I want to get to everybody is, you know what? We can deal with it, and we can still be grateful. I laugh and I joke when people tell me, hey, how you doing today? I tell them, well, I'm not looking up at 6 feet of dirt.
Yeah, there you go.
And every once in a while, somebody's a little
Well,
taken aback by that.
well,
But, yeah,
let
we
me
have to
jump
be
in. Let me jump in
grateful.
and reflect
Mhm.
with you just for a second about what
Uh-huh.
happened here with this person. And I try to keep this in mind sometimes when I talk to people, when I've been in counseling situations
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
or been at times attacked in my life and for various things. That it's there's a sensibility that people want to kind of attack you because they have some of their own stuff going
Right.
on. You know,
Yes. Oh, yeah.
they have
Yeah.
their own negativity, they have their own deal, and
Mhm.
she is coming from a bad place,
Mhm.
probably
Right.
possibly.
Right.
And
Right.
so I just would just encourage you. I just want to thank you for reflecting with this person a
Mhm.
positive outlook in spite of her obvious negative
Mhm.
outlook, and that toxic positivity is a problem. That's true. But my gosh, toxicity and negative toxicity, I just said a word, negative toxicness is much greater issue
Mhm.
in our world
Right.
with loneliness and
Mhm.
depression and
Mhm.
and disease. And I think it's incumbent upon people like you and I
Mhm.
to try to be a point of light to point into those dark places.
Mhm.
So I just want to thank you for doing that. But
Right.
keep going, my friend. I know you're fired up, so
Right.
keep going.
Well, you know, and what you just said really struck home. I don't know why she responded this way. Maybe she got a horrible news, who knows? And so I need to take a breath or two and calm down, right? Because she didn't mean it as an insult. Even though I kind of took it that way, she did not mean it that way. And I need to respond back to her with love
Yes.
and just say, I probably won't say I don't know what you're going through, but I think I'll just say thank you for letting me know, and in the future, please let me know if there's any way I can be of assistance to you, and just end it with that. Because you're right, we don't know. When that person at Starbucks is grumpy, maybe they lost their dog that morning, or whatever, and so we need to always take that step back and stop those stories that are going on in our head.
Yeah, and very rarely does it help when you respond in a negative fashion when someone is negative towards you. You
Mhm,
know, if
mhm,
someone attacks you, if you attack them back, and I'll just use some, biblical principles of, the turning of the cheek and so on,
mhm, right,
come into play here. But
mhm,
the very rare, what happens if you are uh, attacked and respond and attacked? Well, then both
mhm,
parties withdraw and go to a defensive mode,
right,
and nothing
mhm,
really gets done. And I
mhm,
think, I'm not going to go off on too big a tangent, but some of the issues we have about divisions in families or political
mhm,
differences or
right,
differences among any number of groups have to do when people do not talk to one another, even if they
mhm,
don't
right,
agree,
right,
and
mhm,
that comes into play. And it almost never, rarely does it happen. If you just say, I'm right and you're wrong, and that's the end of it,
mhm,
well,
right,
we're not going to get anywhere. And
mhm,
so
mhm,
I do agree wholeheartedly with your situation of responding with love and joy,
mhm,
and just say, whatever you need to say. Now, you still
mhm,
need to kind of hold your position, in my opinion, hold your position.
mhm,
Not cave on that, but to hold your
mhm,
position, but respond in love and care.
mhm,
Just say, I respect your position, but
mhm,
I enjoy. I just want to wish you the best.
mhm,
Wish
right,
you the best,
mhm,
and if we can be of service in the future,
mhm,
maybe that can happen.
mhm,
But let's just take this whole scenario here, Deb, and how can we take this and try to be helpful to our lifter uppers who may be facing their own situations where they are facing their cancer situation with a little joy or a little good attitude, and
mhm,
not there's a lot of miserable people in the world, and other people want you to be miserable with them,
right, mhm.
and
Misery loves company.
that's right. So how can we help people? We talk a little bit about this attitude and changing your bad attitude to a good attitude. What do you think are some ways that may be helpful, either to this person or helpful to people in our listening audience, about can move towards something different here, something be helpful
Mhm,
here, change your attitude
right.
from a bad attitude to a better attitude.
I think one of the big things we need to remember is only we are responsible for our attitude.
Mm-hmm.
If that needs to change, then we need to change it. And maybe part of it too is we might need to redefine what success is. Maybe rather than, and we've talked about having goals. Like one of your goals is obviously to see your granddaughters grow up and
Yeah.
graduate from high school, and all of those various things. And sometimes we might need to kind of scale it back a bit. And then we can change them. I mean, we're not saying, get too maudlin, but maybe we need to redefine what success is, because I think sometimes we get too big with what we think is something. I mean, like in marketing, we call it a BHAG, a big,
Mm.
hairy, audacious goal,
Right.
right? And sometimes those BHAGs are so unattainable that then it's crushing when we can't attain them. So redefine what you're thinking about, and for some people it might be, I'm going to get through the day.
Mm. I
Okay,
think I
that's
think
good.
I think that's true. And then I think it's also trying to get a little more appropriate perspective
Hmm.
and understanding about our
Hmm.
situation and circumstances
Hmm.
compared to what is possible, and
Hmm.
the realism that you have to be realistic, but also live
Hmm.
in hope. Because if you don't live in
Hmm.
hope, you are going to go into your
Hmm.
demise. And there's something here
Hmm.
I'll just interject to our conversation called the Stockdale Paradox. Maybe
Hmm.
have you heard of this term, the
No.
Stockdale Paradox? And
Mm-mm. No.
Stockdale Paradox, in short, I picked it up from the teachings of a guy named Jim Collins in Good to Great
Mhm.
Thinking, maybe a business
Mm.
teacher.
Mhm.
But anyhow, Admiral Stockdale was a pilot during the Vietnam era, and he was shot
Mhm.
down over Hanoi and
Mhm.
ended
Mhm.
up in what they call the Hanoi Hilton, which is the prison
Mhm.
in Vietnam.
Right.
And he later on became a senator and such later
Mhm.
on in his life, and very
Mhm.
decorated, was one of the highest decorated veterans of the Vietnam War. But the point I want to make here is when he went to Hanoi Hilton, he was there for several years, about 4 years he was there. And he wrote about later on the phenomenon where the some people who would other pilots who would be put there, they would have an attitude of, okay, I'm going to be home by Christmas. I'll get out of here right
Mhm.
away, this kind of thing.
Mhm.
And they didn't necessarily make it. They either had a mental
Right.
breakdown and some of them
Mhm.
died and so on and so forth because they was not their reality. They were in a prison,
Mhm.
and they
Right.
were prisoners
Mhm.
of war. But other people gave up hope completely, like we'll never
Mhm.
ever get out of here,
Right.
and
Mhm.
they didn't make it either because they lacked hope. And what
Mhm.
Stockdale talked about was the paradox of accepting your brutal facts,
Mhm.
horrible as they may be,
Mhm.
and then choosing to continue to live your life with hope
Mhm.
for a better future. And
Right.
so that's what he applied in his life, and
Mhm.
those because he learned it from his
Mhm.
fellow prisoners there, and he applied it in all his life. So
Mhm.
often used it in terms of dealing with my own
Mhm.
cancer and my own bad things that happen in life and adversities, is to
Mhm.
adopt. Okay, bad things happen, and
Right.
bad things happen
Mhm.
to good people. You have to accept it and embrace it in a way, and say, "This is my present reality," and yet not be defeated by it. Choose to still live in hope. And
Mhm.
that's what I think and what we're trying to do here is to give people some tools to cope with
Mhm.
hope, to see
Right.
a bigger future. And I just want to say, way to go, and that you are providing out of your own experience, and your experiences with your cancer are brutal, are absolutely brutal. The ones that you've faced the
Mhm.
brutal facts, and I know how you have shared them with our cancer and comedy audience, and still chosen to show up not only here on the Cancer and Comedy podcast, but your interviews you've done with other people, your try
Mhm.
not to die.live
Mhm.
website and Facebook page. And
Mhm.
I just thank God for people like you. I'm thankful and grateful for that you continue to push on. And I have never seen you I'll just say this to kind of affirm you a little bit. I do not see you being Pollyannish because you have shared the brutal facts of your
Mhm.
situation. But for crying out loud, you continue to face things with a smile on your face and a good attitude, and you're not done yet, are you, Deb? You're not done, right?
I'm far from done. And we never know. I mean, I could get hit by a bus tomorrow.
Of
And
course.
so it's all about how are we living right now
That's
that
right.
I think is so important. And I also want to say if you find yourself that you are far more negative than is probably good for you, then please get help. Whether it's a support group, a counselor, friends, clergy, whoever, it might be that you just need a little extra help. And it makes you strong for asking for that help. It is never making you weak, which I think is what a lot of people think. It makes you very strong to ask for help.
Well, the reality, your cancer diagnosis is devastating. So let's just talk out of
Mhm,
what you just shared there about a couple of positive things that you can do to be
mhm,
assertive. And one of
mhm.
those is self care, having a much more
Right.
awareness
Yep. Mhm,
about your health, or
mhm,
about your mental health, or about
mhm,
your emotional health, any
mhm.
of those areas there. Because, it just because if you have a cancer diagnosis doesn't mean you cannot start living a more healthier lifestyle,
Right. Mhm,
whatever it is, seeing the
mhm,
doctor, getting
mhm,
treatment, or
mhm.
exercise or diet, whatever, those type of things. And mental health. And the other sort of practical thing we could do is choose to build on the present relationships that we have and build
Mhm.
new relationships,
Right. Mhm.
and see those things that are positive. And if you have some relationships that are a bit toxic, maybe you need to kind of take a break there in some of those
Mhm,
toxic relationships
mhm.
and just really enhance those ones that are uplifting and
Right.
positive and create new
Mhm,
ones. And as you
mhm,
mentioned, there are support groups, things like that. We're building a community here at cancercomedy.com.
mhm.
You're building a community to try not to live. But I think relationships and self care are two areas that
Mhm.
people can help themselves.
Right.
You
Right.
agree?
And we should be doing that all the time, whether we have a cancer diagnosis or not. Maybe it's funny. I saw somebody post on Facebook today, going through my friend list and getting rid of people. Tell me how we met. And and I thought, that's actually now, the funny thing is I didn't respond. But I think that is something that we maybe need to continually do. And also maybe go back and reach out to the people that might have dropped off. You have no idea why, and they may or may not respond to you, and but reach back out to them and just say, hey, been thinking about our upcoming high school reunion or a class we took or something that happened, and just reach out to them because you never know when they might really be needing that. And but yeah, it's just something I think we should all be doing all the time.
Well, I think you make a really good point there. It's about being intentional, being a bit
Right.
be assertive.
Mhm.
One of the things
Mhm.
that you have an awareness of when you get a cancer diagnosis is in my mind, I started to hear the clock and the calendar ticking
Right.
a little
Yep.
more.
Mhm.
The end of my life didn't seem like some far off unknown thing. It just seemed like, okay, this could be
Mhm.
something I got to deal with sooner rather
Mhm.
than later
Mhm.
here. And so why not reach out to some people,
Right.
from the past, or why not try to go a little deeper in
Mhm.
some present relationships, take a
Mhm.
bit of a risk. Most of the
Mhm.
time, but in my experience, if you are a bit firm, assertive in these relationships,
Mhm.
most people aren't going to bite your head off and think, you think,
Right.
why are you doing this
Mhm.
for?
Mhm.
Why are you trying to
Yeah, if
contact?
anything, they might just not respond.
That's true too. But
Mhm.
the, but I would just say that when they do respond, many times they're affirming. This past
Right.
summer,
Mhm.
I was able to visit I live in Indianapolis. I was able to visit an uncle who lives in Spokane, Washington. Hadn't
Ah.
seen him for many years
Mhm.
in person, and we were able to just share some stories and have a reconnection. And we
Mhm.
literally, like we live on opposite sides of the country, so we don't see
Mhm.
each other that often. But it was a wonderful thing, and I took the
Right.
opportunity to
Mhm.
personally go to his home because he's up in years and
Mhm.
not able to
Mhm.
travel. And I went to his home when I was out in that part of the world,
Mhm.
and we had a great visit. Well,
Mhm.
I won't forget that. He won't forget that. And
Right.
because I made the effort to go and I'm able
Mhm.
to go at this point, there
Mhm.
may come a time when I'm not able to go
Mhm.
and I'll be dependent on people coming to me. And
Mhm.
I kind of want to be known as the guy who reached out to others, even in the
Mhm.
hope that someday maybe some of them will reach
Right.
out to me,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
that kind of thing. So
Mhm.
I think there's a really good thing here. But I love what you said there though about kind of redefining success and try to kind of accept our feelings, accept our situation, but to see success and see reframe our relationships and things
Mhm.
of that nature. And so, have you found yourself doing some of that here, kind of redefining success and reframing
Yeah.
expectations?
And I think more than anything, maybe it's because we're, as you said, we're recording this right before Thanksgiving. We're getting ready to go into the holiday season. Contrary to Hallmark, I don't watch Christmas movies in September. Um, but I think it does, it's a time for reflection. And definitely a time to be thinking about what we are grateful for. And sometimes those are little, and sometimes we have to search for them, right? There are
Yeah,
days where I'm like, "Nope, I'm mad at the world." And then, like, my dog will come up and put her head on my lap,
there you go.
or I'll get a text from somebody saying, "Hey, just was thinking about you." So you never know what's going to happen, but you have to it's also, I think, a reciprocity thing. Don't wait for everything to come to you.
Yeah.
As you said, reach out to others, because it is kind of what goes around comes around, the golden rule, whatever we want to say. But yeah, if you want good things to happen to you, then you need to be sharing those good things.
And I think we have to be intentional about it. What I mean by that is,
Mhm.
I heard it said somewhere, and maybe one of the studies we've read or learned about, something to the effect of when you have a negative thing happen or a bad experience, kind of like what you had earlier here today, that can stick with you. Those things can stick,
Mhm.
and in
Right.
order, it's kind of a 10 to 1. You have to
Mhm.
10 positive things to kind of
Mhm.
help you deal with the
Mhm.
one
Right.
negative thing. And I know if I dig not very far, I could think of the negative stuff that's happened in my
Mhm.
life
Mhm.
way back.
Right. Right.
Way
Mhm.
way back, and the positive things seem we need to work at a little bit more.
Mhm.
And I just would encourage us to think of some more positive thoughts that we
Mhm.
can, affirmations and
Mhm.
that kind of thing,
Right.
because the negative stuff is almost always going to be there right there at the surface,
Mhm.
and it's going to nag
Mhm.
at us, that kind of thing. So,
Right.
well, awesome. Well, anything else you want to share out of this experience? If you let me just
Yeah.
let me ask you this, just to kind of bring this
Okay.
conversation around. If you were able to, if you had a chance encounter with
Mhm.
this person or a person like them
Mhm.
who you had a bad experience with, and
Mhm.
just say I don't know, you just went into your local coffee shop and there they
Mhm.
were, and what do you think you would say? What do you think would be the encounter? Would it be just get your coffee and go? Would there be a conversation brief? Would there be anything going on there? I know I'm pushing you a little bit here, but
Right. Yeah.
what do you
It,
think?
it, it's interesting. I would hope that I would be the bigger person, right?
Okay.
And I don't know that I would go up and strike up a conversation, but I want to acknowledge them. And so maybe it's just that you acknowledge them and you kind of smile and you wave their way, and then you see what happens. Maybe, and we all know that we have sometimes misinterpreted things,
Yeah.
right? So maybe they weren't even aware that there was something bad going on. So yeah, I would just kind of acknowledge them and say hi, and then kind of leave it at that.
Yeah. Well, I think that's good. I sometimes I've used this phrase to try to engage rather than enrage.
Right.
Try
Uh-huh.
to
Uh-huh.
have
Mhm.
some sort of a moment
Mhm.
with people.
Mhm.
And I've been there. I've avoided people and things like that at
Mhm.
times I didn't want to deal with. And but if you can have a moment just to connect on a human level,
Mhm.
some sort of a positive thing,
Mhm.
that's a better place to be
Right.
than to just kind of be
Mhm.
avoidance doesn't, in my
Mhm.
opinion, avoidance doesn't really work, and
Mhm.
confrontation doesn't work. if you can make
Mhm.
some sort of a connection,
Mhm.
even if it's brief, I
Mhm.
think that helps. But the
Right.
connection I just want to make with you, Deb, right now, as we kind of bring this conversation around, is that I'm sorry you had this negative experience, but I know you handled it well, and you're an awesome person, and your brightness and your aliveness brightens my life, and I know for a fact because I've got the responses and the emails to prove it that uh, your attitude, your positive attitude, helps people here among our lifter uppers in our cancer and comedy audience, and I know it does in the people that you have been reaching out to through trying not to die, live, and also by putting yourself out there to be on cancer related podcasts. So I just want to say, yay, God, way to go. And I'm thankful and grateful for who you are and for how you responded to a negative situation with positivity. And you, indeed, in this day, turned someone whose focus was on the grim, literally,
And
not
maybe
only,
into a grin. Mhm.
and
Right. Well,
at least you wanted to go
mhm,
to the grin.
mhm.
So,
Right.
yeah.
Right. Well, thank you so much. It really does mean a lot to me that you said that. And so again, thank you so much. Yeah, we need to turn those grim into grins.